My girlfriend used my savings to impress her friends, then dumped me for a rich guy. Now she's broke, and I'm the one she can't stop calling him a 27-year-old guy. And for the longest time, I thought my relationship with Olivia was perfect. We met in college, and it felt like fate. She was everything I thought I wanted: beautiful, intelligent, effortlessly charming. Every time she smiled at me, I couldn't help but feel like the luckiest guy in the world. She would tell me things like, "I'm so grateful to have you," or "I don't know what I'd do without you." It was the kind of love story you see in movies, and I bought into it completely. I worked a steady job while Olivia stayed in school. She was focused on her dreams, and I was happy to support her. I didn't mind that I was putting in the long hours. Hell, I loved seeing her so motivated and excited about her future. She'd tell me about her classes, her plans, the people she was meeting, and I just nodded along, proud of everything she was accomplishing. I was always the responsible one, and she was the dreamer. We seemed like the perfect balance, but looking back, I realized now there were small signs I ignored. The little things, like how she always wanted more. Not just more of my time, but more of everything. The new clothes, the dinners at fancy places, the spontaneous trips she'd suggest when I didn't have the money to take her. At first, I thought it was just her enjoying life. Everyone deserves a little luxury, right? But then, the little things started adding up. She would joke about how much she hated her part-time job, yet when I'd ask how I could help with the bills, she'd change the subject. Or when we'd go out, she'd always find a way to bring up how nice it would be if we could afford this or that. The hints were subtle, but they were there. I told myself it didn't matter. After all, she was my girl, and we were a team. I could handle it. But deep down, I started to feel like I was losing control. Something didn't feel right, but I couldn't put my finger on it. Maybe I was just overthinking things. It was supposed to be perfect. But I guess sometimes perfection is just the calm before the storm. As the months went by, I found myself working harder, putting in more hours, and stretching my budget just to keep up with Olivia's growing list of wants. She was always so gracious about it. At least that's what I told myself. "Thank you for everything you do," she'd say, her eyes sparkling with affection. But I couldn't shake the feeling that I was running in circles, trying to give her more than I could afford. It started small. One evening, we were having dinner at a casual restaurant when she casually mentioned how much she loved the latest designer shoes she saw in a store window. "If only I could buy those," she said, sighing dramatically. "But I know it's way out of my budget." I laughed it off, brushing it aside, but deep down, it gnawed at me. The way she said it wasn't just a passing comment, it felt like a silent plea for me to do something about it. A week later, she brought it up again, this time more directly. We were lying on the couch, watching a movie, when she turned to me and said, "I just hate how everyone I know gets to buy whatever they want. The people in my classes. They all have these incredible clothes and gadgets, and I feel so left out." I could hear the frustration in her voice, but I couldn't tell if it was just a complaint or a subtle accusation. I remember feeling this knot in my stomach, but I smiled, trying to reassure her. "Hey, we'll get there," I said, wrapping my arm around her. "We'll both work hard, and we'll be able to afford whatever we want eventually." I wanted to make her feel better, but there was a sinking feeling in me, like a warning bell I couldn't ignore anymore. The tipping point came a few weeks later when we were out shopping. Olivia had been talking about needing a new purse for weeks, and I had been brushing it off, assuming it was just another one of those things she'd get over. But that day, we walked past a boutique, and there it was, the exact purse she had been eyeing. It was expensive, like really expensive. I felt the familiar pressure building up inside my chest as she walked inside without even looking at me. "You think I should get it?" she asked, eyes wide with that excited gleam. I didn't want to disappoint her. So, I told myself, "I'll just figure it out." "Go for it," I said. My words barely left my mouth before I saw the smile stretch across her face. But inside, I felt a strange unease. Something didn't sit right. It wasn't about the purse, it was about me feeling like I wasn't enough. No matter how hard I tried, that was the first time I really started questioning if this relationship was as perfect as I had convinced myself it was. It wasn't until Olivia mentioned wanting a luxury watch for her birthday that the full weight of it hit me. Up until then, I'd been able to convince myself that the small things were just passing whims, and that I could handle whatever came our way. But this was different. A luxury watch? That wasn't just another I wanted moment. It felt like a demand. We were sitting on the couch one night, flipping through Netflix, when she casually dropped it in the middle of a conversation about something else entirely. "You know," she said, as if it was the most natural thing in the world, "I really need a new watch. Something classy. My friend Janet just got one, and it's gorgeous." I think I'd feel so much more confident with something like that. I stared at her, my mind racing. A part of me wanted to laugh it off, like I always had. But this wasn't the same as her usual hints for clothes or shoes. This was something that felt heavy, expensive, like she wasn't asking for something nice, she was expecting it. The problem was, I knew I couldn't afford it, but I also couldn't imagine letting her down. I spent the next few days in a cloud of guilt and anxiety. I thought about how hard I worked, how little time I had for myself, and how much I sacrificed for her. And still, it never felt like it was enough. So, I decided that I would do it. I would buy her the watch. I could cut back on a few things, skip a few meals out, not go out with friends as much, maybe even take on extra shifts at work. I could make it happen. After all, she was my girlfriend, and I wanted her to be happy, right? The day I bought the watch felt like the weight of the world was on my shoulders. I walked into the store, feeling out of place amongst the gleaming displays of luxury. The saleswoman smiled at me, almost knowingly, as I asked to see the watch Olivia had mentioned. I nearly had a heart attack when she told me the price. It was way more than I expected. But I didn't back out. I bought it, swiping my card with a sick feeling in my stomach when I handed it to Olivia. Her eyes lit up in that familiar way, like I had just given her the moon. She kissed me, her gratitude overflowing. "You're amazing," she said, hugging me tightly. But as I stood there, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. The smile on her face didn't make me feel as good as I thought it would. It felt like I'd just bought a piece of her approval. A few weeks after I bought the watch for Olivia, I started to notice things weren't as perfect as I'd convinced myself they were. At first, it was the little things. She'd cancel plans last minute, or when we did spend time together, she seemed distracted. I brushed it off, telling myself she was just busy with school or work. But deep down, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was shifting. One Saturday night, I decided to surprise her. We had talked about grabbing dinner, but I knew how much she liked surprises, so I planned a little outing. I picked up her favorite flowers, made a reservation at a nice restaurant she'd mentioned a few times, and showed up at her apartment with a grin on my face, excited to see her smile. But when I knocked on her door, there was no answer. I waited for a few minutes, assuming she was just running late or caught up with something. But when I looked through the window, I saw something that stopped me in my tracks. Olivia's living room lights were on, and I could see her, standing with another guy. My stomach dropped. I tried to shake it off, thinking maybe it was just a friend or a study buddy. But then I saw him lean in to kiss her. I don't know why I didn't turn and leave right then. Maybe I was in shock. Maybe I was hoping I was wrong. But I stood there, frozen, watching them together. Olivia, my girlfriend, the one I had been sacrificing for, was with someone else. I couldn't breathe. The world felt like it was crashing down on me. I wanted to burst through the door, to scream at her, but I stayed there, motionless. I watched as the guy wrapped his arms around her, and she laughed genuinely, like everything between us was just a memory. Like I didn't matter at all. The worst part was, I didn't even feel angry at first. I felt ashamed that I had been so blind, ashamed that I had worked so hard to make her happy, only for her to treat me like I didn't exist the moment someone with more to offer came around. I stood there, my heart pounding as they continued to embrace, oblivious to the fact that I was outside, dying inside. I knew I should leave. I knew I should confront her, but I couldn't. Not then. I couldn't bring myself to do it. So, I turned around and walked away, each step feeling heavier than the last. The rest of the night was a blur. I went home, sat on my couch, and stared at the floor, unable to think straight. I kept replaying the image of them together in my head. My mind screamed, how could she do this? But I already knew the answer. It wasn't about me. It was never about me. I don't know when I fell asleep, but I woke up the next morning, still numb, with a message from Olivia on my phone. Hey babe, I'm so sorry, I was caught up with a friend. I'll call you later. I didn't respond to Olivia's message right away. In fact, I didn't respond for days. I couldn't. I was angry, confused and humiliated. But most of all, I felt stupid. For weeks, I'd been so blinded by the illusion of our perfect relationship that I ignored the signs, the whispers of doubt that were there all along. I had worked myself into the ground, spending my hard-earned money, my time, my energy, all for someone who didn't care. And in the back of my mind, I always knew deep down that something wasn't right, but I didn't want to face it. Now, I had no choice. The days that followed were brutal. I saw Olivia's calls come through one after another like clockwork. Her texts, each one more apologetic than the last. But the words didn't mean anything to me anymore. They were just noise, empty apologies for things she knew she could never take back. I couldn't bear to hear her voice, so I turned off my phone. Isolating myself in my apartment. Why the third day, she showed up at my door. I wasn't sure if I wanted to see her or not, but I knew this was going to be the moment where everything changed. When I opened the door, Olivia looked nothing like the confident, carefree woman I'd once known. She was disheveled, eyes puffy from crying, wearing that look of someone who knows they've already lost. "I'm so sorry," she said before I could even say a word, her voice barely above a whisper. I never meant for you to find out like this. It's just..." I was confused. I thought, "Stop," I interrupted, my voice shaking. "Just stop." I could feel the tears welling up, but I fought them back. "You're not sorry, Olivia? If you were, you wouldn't have done this in the first place. You wouldn't have lied to me. You wouldn't have..." My voice cracked, and I had to look away before she saw how much it hurt. She reached out to touch my arm, but I pulled away. The touch I once craved now felt like a betrayal. "I didn't want to hurt you," she said, her voice breaking. I was caught up in everything. I thought I could have both. I thought both? I spat, my heart racing. "You thought you could have me and him? A guy who's richer than me. A guy who can buy you everything I can't. You think that's okay?" She recoiled, her face flushing with guilt, but I could see the truth in her eyes. She wanted the luxury, the lifestyle, and when she saw a chance for it, she took it. I wasn't enough. I wasn't the kind of guy she needed. "I'm not him," I whispered, feeling my heart break a little more with every word. "I can't be the guy who buys you all those things, Olivia." But I tried. God, I tried so hard. Her eyes filled with tears again. But I didn't want to see them. I didn't want to feel sympathy for her anymore. Not after everything. Not after the way she treated me. "I don't need your apologies," I said, my voice hardening. "I'm done." And with that, I closed the door. I stood there for a long time, leaning against it, trying to calm the storm inside me. The anger was still there, but it was mixed with something else, a quiet, crushing sense of loss. I had been so blinded by the idea of her, of us, that I hadn't realized how much I'd been sacrificing. I thought it was the lowest point. But the truth was, the worst was yet to come. Days turned into weeks, and I tried to move on. I forced myself to go out with friends, to distract myself from the crushing feeling of betrayal that weighed on me. But every time I saw her name pop up on my phone, every time I heard someone mention her, the anger would rise up in me again. Olivia, the girl I thought was the love of my life, had taken everything I had given her and tossed it aside like it didn't matter. It wasn't just the money, the watch, the dinners, or the gifts. It was everything. The time I spent supporting her, the emotional energy I invested, the way I had bent over backward to make her happy. All of it for nothing. But then, a few months later, I started hearing rumors. Olivia wasn't doing as well as she made it seem. That perfect life she had once shown off, it was unraveling. The guy she had left me for, the rich guy, had dumped her. Apparently, he had been using her the entire time. He was just looking for someone to make him look good, to parade around at parties, and Olivia, ever eager to fit into the world, had fallen for it. But now she was stuck. She wasn't getting the lavish gifts anymore, the designer clothes, the nights out on the town. She was back to square one, alone and struggling. It felt almost too good to be true, like some sort of cruel justice I hadn't asked for, but somehow had found its way to me anyway. I don't know why it took me so long to feel a sense of satisfaction. Maybe because I wasn't the kind of guy. I didn't want to be happy about her downfall. But deep down, it was hard to ignore the quiet sense of justice creeping up on me. She had betrayed me for all the wrong reasons, and now she was paying for it. It didn't make me feel better, but it did make me feel a little less stupid. One night, a few weeks after the rumors started swirling, I got a text from Olivia. It had been months since we last spoke, and I honestly wasn't expecting to hear from her again. The message was simple. I need to talk. Please. I'm in a really bad place right now. I stared at the screen for what felt like an eternity. The anger and hurt I had buried deep down rose to the surface again. Part of me wanted to ignore it, to pretend I never saw it. But another part of me that had been waiting for some kind of closure, decided to respond. What do you want, Olivia? I typed, my fingers shaking. She replied almost immediately. I'm sorry. I was wrong. I was selfish, and I didn't appreciate you. I don't know how to fix things, but I need your help. I've lost everything. I couldn't help but smirk as I read her words. She had lost everything. The girl who had tossed me aside for a guy with more money than me, who had used me as her stepping stone, was now begging for my help. The irony wasn't lost on me. You had everything you needed, Olivia, I replied, my heart pounding in my chest. You just didn't know how to appreciate it. I didn't give her a chance to respond. I blocked her number. I didn't need her back in my life. Not now, not ever. I sat back in my chair, staring at the screen. A strange feeling washed over me. Not relief, not satisfaction, just a quiet, empty calm. I had finally closed the door on her. But even as I felt that calm, I knew one thing for sure. The story wasn't over. Not yet. I thought I was done with Olivia. I thought I put everything behind me, cut the emotional tears, blocked the number, and walked away for good. I was moving on with my life, focusing on myself, finding new hobbies, spending time with friends who actually respected me. Slowly, the sting of betrayal faded into something more manageable, like a bruise that eventually heals. I was getting back to normal, then one evening, months later, my phone buzzed in my pocket. It was a number I didn't recognize, but something about it made me pause. My stomach dropped when I saw the area code. No way. I stared at the screen, my finger hovering over the button, unsure whether to answer or not. But something inside me told me this wouldn't be just another spam call. I pressed accept and put the phone to my ear, my pulse quickening. Hello? I said, my voice sharp, more defensive than I meant it to be. Hey, it's Olivia, she said quietly, almost nervously. Like she was scared I might hang up on her right then and there. I froze, my heart hammering in my chest. Olivia, the last person I ever expected to hear from again. I didn't know who else to turn to. She continued, her voice shaky, like she wasn't sure how to begin. I know I've hurt you, and I know I don't deserve to ask this, but I'm in trouble. I really need your help. My first instinct was to hang up. She had burned me. She had used me, discarded me. And now, months later, she thought she could just waltz back into my life and ask for my help. After everything, the audacity, but I didn't hang up. I stayed silent, the words caught in my throat. Part of me was angry, yes, furious even. But part of me felt sorry for her. I'm sorry for everything, for the way I treated you. Olivia said, her voice cracking. I was selfish. I thought I could have everything. But it all fell apart. He dumped me, and I've been trying to keep it all together, but I can't. I don't know what to do anymore. Her words hit me like a punch to the gut. But it wasn't because I felt bad for her. It was because, somewhere deep inside, I felt something I couldn't deny, a twisted sense of satisfaction. For months, I had wondered what happened to her. I'd heard the rumors about her falling apart, losing everything, but hearing it from her was a different story. Olivia, who had once thrown me away for someone with more money, was now broken and alone. I don't know where to go, or who to turn to, she continued, sounding small, vulnerable in a way I had never heard before. I was wrong, and I'm sorry. I know I don't deserve your help, but I don't have anyone else. I could feel the guilt creeping in. I could feel the part of me that still remembered all the good moments, the part of me that had loved her, that wanted to believe she was sorry. But then I remembered how easily she had walked away from me, how quickly she had replaced me, and I knew I couldn't go back to that. I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself. Olivia, I'm not the person you can turn to anymore. You had your chance. You made your choice, I said, each word cutting through the silence between us. You have to figure this out on your own. I could feel her hesitation on the other end of the line. There was a long pause before she spoke again. Please, she whispered. I can't do this alone. The rawness of her voice almost made me falter, but I didn't let it. I had come too far to go back now. I'm sorry, Olivia, I said, my voice steady but firm. But you're on your own this time. And just like that, I hung up the phone. I felt a strange emptiness as I placed it down, but I didn't regret my decision. I had finally closed the door. For good. Days turned into weeks after I blocked Olivia, and I kept myself busy. I focused on work, going out with friends, keeping my distance from anything that might remind me of her. For the most part, I felt better, more at peace. I had taken control back, and I was moving forward without her. But Olivia didn't stop. She started showing up at places I frequented, at the coffee shop I went to every morning, at the gym I worked out at. At first, I thought it was just coincidence. But when I saw her standing outside the restaurant I had been eating at with friends, my stomach sank. I wasn't sure if it was guilt, anger, or some twisted form of sympathy. But seeing her there, watching me from the sidewalk, made my blood boil. I tried to ignore her, pretending I didn't see her. But the next day, she texted me again. Can we talk, please? I swear I won't take much of your time. My hands clenched around my phone. The nerve. I couldn't understand why she was doing this. Wasn't I clear enough when I told her to leave me alone? Hadn't I made it clear that I wasn't going to be her safety net anymore? She had no right to keep forcing herself back into my life. The next text came an hour later. I know I messed up, but I can't keep living like this. I'm sorry. I'm really sorry. I just want a chance to make things right. Can we meet? Just once. I could feel my resolve starting to crack. Part of me, the old me, wanted to take the bait, to sit down with her, to hear her side of things, to somehow fix what had been broken. But I quickly reminded myself of how she had tossed me aside so easily when things got difficult. She had used me. And now she was coming back because she had nowhere else to go. That was the harsh reality of it. She wasn't sorry because she realized the mistake she had made by losing me. She was sorry because she was alone now, struggling to make ends meet, and desperate for someone to save her. I let out a deep sigh and closed my eyes, fighting the temptation to respond. I had to be strong. I couldn't let myself be drawn back in. I thought I was past this, that I had finally moved on. But here she was again, trying to worm her way back into my life, just when I thought I could ignore her. She showed up at my door again. I wasn't expecting her, of course. I didn't even want to open the door. But something about the way she stood there looking so small, so vulnerable, made my heart ache. For a brief second, I almost let her in. But then I remembered everything, the lies, the betrayal, the way she had discarded me like I didn't matter. Olivia, what do you want? I asked, my voice flat, emotionless. She stood there for a moment, almost like she was gathering herself before speaking. I know you don't want to see me, and I understand that, she said softly. But please, just hear me out. I'm not asking for anything. I just need to explain. I need you to know that I am sorry for everything. I was stupid. I was selfish, and I regret it every day. I could see her eyes welling up with tears, but I didn't feel any pity for her anymore. You should have thought about that before you threw me away for someone with more money, I said, the anger rising in me again. You used me, Olivia, and now you want me to feel sorry for you? She flinched at my words, and it hit me that this wasn't the Olivia I remembered. She wasn't the confident, carefree girl who had once charmed me. Now, she was someone broken, someone who had lost everything, and it wasn't just because of the guy who had dumped her. It was because of her own choices. I just don't know what else to do, she whispered. I was so caught up in trying to be perfect, to live up to this image of what I thought I needed. And now I'm nothing. There was a part of me that wanted to help her. There was a part of me that still cared for her, even after everything. But then I thought about all the sacrifices I'd made, all the ways she had used me, and I felt a cold wave of clarity wash over me. No, I said firmly, shaking my head. You did this to yourself. You need to fix it on your own. I'm not your backup anymore. I closed the door without another word, and for the first time, I felt like I had truly let her go. A few weeks passed after I shut the door on Olivia, and I thought I was finally free. The weight that had been hanging over me, the constant fear of her trying to worm her way back into my life, started to lift. I was focusing on me, rebuilding my life, enjoying my time without the constant emotional drain she had been. Things were getting better. I felt like I could breathe again. But then came the second shock, the one I never saw coming. It was a Saturday evening. I was at a bar with a couple of friends, just unwinding after a long week.
I'd almost forgotten what it was like to have fun without thinking about Olivia, without the lingering bitterness.
But then, as we were chatting and laughing, I saw her.
Not Olivia, but someone I recognized, her new boyfriend.
The one she'd left me for.
The one who had all the money. The one who had given her everything she wanted. I froze, and my heart skipped a beat.
There he was, sitting at the bar with some friends, laughing and chatting, completely oblivious to the fact that I was staring at him.
He looked the same, too perfect, too rich, too much of everything I wasn't.
I don't know why, but I couldn't stop watching him.
Every time he took a sip from his drink or smiled,
I felt that familiar knot in my stomach tighten. Then, the real twist hit me like a ton of bricks. As I was about to look away and pretend I hadn't seen him, I saw Olivia. She walked into the bar, a little disheveled, a little less polished than I remembered, but still her. She walked straight up to him, greeted him with that same smile she used to give me, and they kissed. Right there in front of everyone, my blood ran cold. I thought I was over it. I thought I had finally put this behind me, but seeing them together again, seeing the reality of it all laid out in front of me, was like a punch to the gut.
I had to look away, but it was too late.
I had seen it. They were back together.
And Olivia, who had left me because I wasn't good enough, was now back with him just as I had feared. But here's where it took an even darker turn. As I watched from the corner of the bar, I overheard their conversation.
It wasn't loud, but I could hear enough to make out what was being said. So, how's everything going with your parents?
Olivia asked, her voice soft, almost like she was trying to make conversation.
I know things were a little tense with them last time I saw you. The guy laughed, but there was something strange about it. Yeah, my parents are fine, he said. They just don't get it.
But you know, money solves everything, right? Once I'm back in their good graces, I can have anything I want. Anything. My stomach churned. There it was again, the same attitude, the same sense of entitlement, the same mindset that had made her leave me in the first place. She had never wanted me.
She had wanted the life that came with him, the image of perfection.
And now she was willing to turn a blind eye to the fact that he wasn't just financially irresponsible. He was manipulative and dishonest. They weren't in love.
They were in a transaction. I couldn't stay there any longer.
I told my friends I wasn't feeling well and excused myself from the table, my heart pounding in my chest. I left the bar without saying goodbye, without looking back, but as I walked down the street, a strange sense of empowerment washed over me.
The anger I had felt when I saw them together was there. Yes, but so was something else, relief. I finally saw her for what she really was. She wasn't some perfect girl who had made a mistake. She was a person who had used me, who had taken everything I had to offer and discarded me when something better came along. And now, she was trapped in the very cycle she had tried to escape.
The person who once seemed to have everything was no better than she was before. She was stuck. It wasn't the closure I had hoped for.
It wasn't the revenge I might dreamed of.
But it was justice, in its own way. I had moved on, and now she was the one who was left with nothing, no money, no security, and no one to help her. As much as it hurt, I knew I was better off.
I had learned my lesson, and I was done looking back. It had been a few weeks since I saw Olivia with him again at the bar, and I thought I was done. I thought I had moved on completely. No more regrets, no more looking back. I focused on my work, started dating again, and put the past behind me as best I could.
But of course, life doesn't let you escape that easily. One afternoon, as I was walking into the coffee shop near my apartment, I saw Olivia standing by the counter, nervously glancing around.
I stopped in my tracks.
It felt like my heart had dropped into my stomach. It was like all the air had been sucked out of the room. The moment I locked eyes with her, I felt a wave of anger, confusion, and somehow sadness.
She was still the girl I had once loved, but now she was just a ghost of that person. She froze when she saw me, and I could tell she didn't know whether to approach me or run. For a split second, she looked as if she was about to leave, but then she hesitated, and before I could turn around, she called out my name. "Hey," she said softly, a little unsure.
I didn't want to talk to her. I didn't want to even look at her. But something in me made me stop. Maybe it was the curiosity, the need for closure that had been lingering in the back of my mind all this time.
Or maybe it was the part of me that still couldn't let go of what we had, despite everything. I turned around, trying to hide the frustration that was already building up in my chest.
"What do you want, Olivia?" My voice was firm, colder than I intended, but I couldn't help it. She looked down at her feet for a second, then back up at me, her expression a mix of guilt and uncertainty. I just wanted to apologize.
I know it's been a while, but
I owe you that. Her words were soft, almost hesitant.
I've been thinking a lot about everything.
About how I treated you. I crossed my arms, not sure if I even wanted to hear this apology.
You've had plenty of time to think about it, Olivia. You've had months.
What makes today different?
She winced at my words, but she didn't back down.
I'm not expecting you to forgive me.
I don't think I deserve that, but I need you to know that.
I was wrong. I was selfish, and I was too caught up in my own fantasies to see what I had right in front of me. I stared at her, trying to control the emotions bubbling up inside.
I wanted to yell at her. I wanted to tell her how much she had hurt me, how much her selfishness had destroyed me.
But instead, I stayed silent, letting the tension hang in the air. I don't know what I was thinking. Honestly, she continued, her voice shaking now.
I thought I needed money, a rich life, all the things that come with it. But I was wrong.
I see that now. I was chasing something that didn't even matter. I could hear the sincerity in her voice, but I wasn't sure if I could believe it anymore. The girl who had walked away from me for someone who could buy her whatever she wanted was the same girl standing in front of me now, apologizing for her mistakes.
Was it too little too late? Olivia, you can't just say sorry and expect everything to be okay, I said, my voice louder now, but no less harsh.
You hurt me. You used me. And for what? For someone who doesn't care about you. You threw everything away for that. And now you want me to forget it. To just accept your apology and move on?
She nodded, her eyes welling up. I don't expect you to forgive me. I don't even know if I can forgive myself.
But
I had to tell you how sorry I am, and how much I regret everything. You were everything I needed, and I didn't see that until it was too late. I stood there for a long moment, staring at her, feeling the weight of her words, but also feeling how hollow they felt.
Everything she said was true, but it didn't change anything.
I had already let her go. I had already moved on.
This moment, as painful as it was nothing more than a reflection of how far I had come, how much stronger I had become without her. Finally, I took a deep breath. I'm sorry, Olivia.
But I'm done. I can't go back to that.
And I won't. I looked at her one last time, letting the finality of my words sink in. She nodded, tears streaming down her face, but she didn't argue. She didn't say anything more.
She just turned and walked out of the coffee shop, disappearing into the crowd, leaving me standing there with the weight of everything we had shared. As I watched her walk away, I realized that for the first time, I wasn't looking back.
I wasn't holding on to the past, to what could have been. I was free. The days after the confrontation with Olivia felt surreal. It was like I had been holding my breath for so long, waiting for some kind of closure, some sort of emotional release.
And when it finally came, when I said those last words to her, I thought I would feel something: relief, anger, maybe even sadness.
But instead, there was only this overwhelming sense of calm, as if everything I had been carrying for the past months had finally been put down. I didn't hear from Olivia again after that. She didn't text, didn't call, didn't show up at my apartment. And for a while, I thought maybe that was it. Maybe she really did understand that it was over. Maybe she'd finally learned her lesson. But then, something happened that I wasn't expecting, something that hit me like a brick wall. It was a Friday night, a few weeks after the coffee shop confrontation, when I received a message. I didn't recognize the number at first. The message was short, simple: please meet me. I stared at the screen for a long time, the words burning into my mind. My heart started racing.
I knew immediately who it was from.
It was Olivia.
And even though I told myself I was done with her, a part of me wanted to know what this was about.
Why now?
What did she want from me? I had no intention of giving in, no intention of meeting her again.
But the pull of curiosity was too strong. I agreed. We met at a small park near my apartment. I showed up first, sitting on a bench, trying to calm my nerves, trying to get my thoughts together. I didn't want to make the same mistake again. I wasn't going to let her back into my life.
I had already given her enough chances.
This was for my own peace of mind. No more games. When Olivia arrived, she looked different, still the same person, but there was a sadness about her that I hadn't seen before. Her eyes were downcast, her shoulders slumped as if she were carrying the weight of everything that had happened. I didn't know where else to go, she said quietly, standing a few feet away from me.
I just wanted to apologize again.
For everything. And I need you to know something. I looked at her, unsure if I even wanted to hear it.
Olivia, I've already heard enough. You don't need to say anything else, but she shook her head.
No, this is important. I need you to hear me out, just for a minute. I stayed silent, waiting for her to continue, feeling my stomach twist in knots. I was with him, the rich guy.
I went back to him because I thought that was what I wanted, and for a while I thought I was happy. But the truth is, I wasn't.
I wasn't happy with him, and I wasn't happy with myself. Everything I thought I wanted.
It was empty.
I was chasing a dream that wasn't mine. I looked at her, a part of me still not fully believing what I was hearing. But she wasn't done yet. I know I hurt you, she said, her voice breaking. And I've been miserable.
I thought money and status would make me feel secure, but all it did was make me feel hollow. I thought leaving you was going to make me better, but it didn't.
It made me lose everything that actually mattered. I lost you. I lost myself. I didn't say anything for a long moment.
I just let her words hang in the air, unsure of how to react. She had finally come to this realization, but was it too late?
Had she learned anything? Or was she just looking for a way to relieve her guilt? I stood up, my voice steady but firm. You didn't lose me, Olivia. You let me go. And that's on you. You made your choices, and I made mine.
You chose a life that wasn't real. I'm not a part of that anymore,
and I won't let you drag me back into it. Her face fell, but she didn't argue.
She didn't beg.
Instead, she nodded, her eyes filled with tears. I get it, she whispered, her voice barely audible. I get it now. I was wrong for a moment. We stood there, both of us silent, and it felt like everything had come full circle. This was the moment I realized that I had finally moved on, that I had healed,
that the anger and the sadness, the self-doubt, the hurt,
were all behind me. I could finally walk away and leave her in the past where she belonged. As I turned to leave,
I felt something strange, a sense of freedom.
Like a weight had been lifted from my shoulders.
I wasn't angry anymore.
I wasn't hurt. I was just free. I had reclaimed my life.
I had learned that I didn't need her, and that was the most powerful thing I could have realized. The final twist wasn't about Olivia coming back into my life. It was about me realizing that I didn't need her to move forward. I didn't need her apology. I didn't need her approval. I had everything I needed inside me.
And that was enough. I didn't hear from Olivia again after that day in the park. And to be honest, I didn't expect to.
Part of me had braced myself for one last desperate attempt to pull me back into her world of confusion and manipulation. But when that didn't happen, I realized just how far I'd come. The days after I walked away from her felt different.
It wasn't that I was angry or upset anymore. It was more like I was finally at peace. The weight of the past had been lifted, and I could breathe again. I wasn't just surviving anymore, I was living. I started doing things for myself. I started pursuing the hobbies I had put off when I was trying to please her.
I went on weekend trips, rediscovered old passions, and reconnected with people who genuinely cared about me.
I didn't need to prove anything to anyone.
I didn't need Olivia's validation or her love to feel whole. I remember one evening, sitting on my balcony after a long day, sipping a beer, watching the sunset. I thought about everything that had happened, the pain, the betrayal, the endless cycles of self-doubt.
And I realized for the first time that it had all been worth it.
It had taken time, and it had taken a lot of emotional energy, but I had learned so much. I had learned how to love myself, how to set boundaries, how to trust again, not in people, but in myself. I started dating again, but this time it was different. I wasn't looking for someone to fill a hole inside me. I wasn't looking for someone to validate me or complete me.
I was looking for a partner, someone who would respect me, support me, and most importantly, someone who would never ask me to sacrifice my worth for theirs.
I also realized something else, that the most important relationship I'd built wasn't with Olivia or with anyone else. It was the relationship I had with myself.
That was the one that mattered, and that was the one I had neglected for so long. One night, I ran into Olivia at a mutual friend's party.
She looked the same as she had before, but there was a tiredness in her eyes, a weariness I couldn't ignore. I had been dreading this moment for weeks. I had wondered what I would do if I saw her again.
But when I did, it wasn't as dramatic as I imagined. It wasn't a confrontation. or a cathartic moment of triumph.
It was just a passing glance. She looked at me, and I could see the apology in her eyes, but I didn't need it anymore.
I had moved on. I had healed. I was finally free. I gave her a nod, a small, almost imperceptible acknowledgement of the past. Then I turned away and walked out of the party. It wasn't about revenge. It wasn't about proving anything.
It was just about me, finally choosing to let go. And as I stepped out into the cool night air, I realized that this was the final step forward. The final step I had needed to take to reclaim my life and my happiness. I wasn't the same person I had been when I first met Olivia. I was stronger, wiser, and more at peace with myself than I ever thought possible. And for the first time in a long time, I knew that I had everything I needed to move forward. I didn't need anyone's approval. I didn't need anyone's love to define me.
I was enough. That was the moment I realized I had won.